Hello, I'm Pastor Matthew Verhoeg, and welcome back to 3-Minute Sermons as we go through the Gospel of Luke. Today we begin with what is essentially the second half of Luke's Gospel. From here on out, we are headed up toward Jerusalem, as in Luke chapter 9, verse 51, Jesus stakes out a new course. When the days drew near for him to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem. Jesus sets out toward Jerusalem, where he would be taken up, that is, lifted up on the cross to be crucified, and then after his resurrection, ascend gloriously into heaven, where he currently sits at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. You can almost feel the excitement and anticipation of his disciples. Jesus has been revealed to them as the Messiah, the Christ, the King. And now they're headed toward Jerusalem. They're imagining the spoils of victory. To prepare their way, they send out messengers to go to a village of the Samaritans, probably to stay there, perhaps to preach and heal. But the people didn't welcome them. Jesus' journey to Jerusalem began with a closed door. But then again, with Christ, the narrow path is often the best. The broad way of ease leads to destruction. The text says that they didn't receive him because his face was set toward Jerusalem. Whether it was because of Jesus' Jewishness or the fact he was headed to Jerusalem rather than Mount Gerizim doesn't matter, because ultimately the Father was leading Jesus' path. Even though it was difficult, it was going to its appointed end, which would result not only in salvation to the Jews, but even the Samaritans themselves, as you can read about in Acts chapter 8. And when his disciples, James and John, saw it, their rejection from the town, they said, "Lord, do you want us to tell fire to come down from heaven and consume them?" And we're like, whoa, where did this come from? Jesus' disciples are expecting their march to Jerusalem to go differently than God intends. They are expecting to be a conquering force that destroys anything in their path, like Elijah of old, who called down fire on the soldiers of wicked King Ahab. But he turned and rebuked them, and they went on to another village. Jesus was not going to bring the fire at this point. He had come not to judge the world, but to save it by dying on the cross for the sins of his people. When we read this text as Christians in the modern world, we should see it as a picture of what it means to be a disciple. It means that some people are not going to welcome Jesus' disciples, just like they didn't welcome Jesus here. It means that we are going to have to live sometimes in a position of weakness, and we have to be okay with that, because it's not our place to bring the judgment. It's not our place to march on Ottawa or Washington to install a government that will bring about God's kingdom by the sword or with fire. We have one message, and we should know it with all our souls. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him.